Hello everyone, my name is Elizabeth Manns and I'd like to welcome you to the April 4th Coalition Show. This is the April 17th, 2023 edition of the show, and it is the 449th show that we have done since the closing of the North Adams Regional Hospital. The April 4th Coalition's mission statement is, we are for workers' rights and collective bargaining rights and are against tax breaks for the rich and corporations who ship our jobs overseas. We support all the articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but as is the custom, we put the emphasis on Article 23 at the start of the show. Which ones you want, Dick?
1 and 2.
Okey-doke.
All right. Article 23, Section 1. Everyone has the right to work, to free choice of employment, to just and favorable conditions of work and protection against unemployment. Number 2, everyone, without any discrimination, has the right to equal pay for equal work.
Number 3, everyone who works has the right to just and favorable remuneration, ensuring for himself or herself and his or her family an existence worthy of human dignity and supplemented, if necessary, by other means of social protection. Number 4, everyone has the right to form and join trade unions for her or his protection. And as is our custom at this time, we give a shout out to Michael Putnam and the WNMB LP 107.1 community radio station for airing our audio portion of our shows on Fridays at 6 p.m. I believe that's still going on. And David Fabiano and his crew for their assistance in producing the show here at the TV studio. Dick, it's April 17th. For some of us, it's a holiday. For
Yes.
you, every day's a holiday
Yes,
now. But
it's Patriots Day.
But it's, yes.
In Massachusetts, it's a state holiday. And I thought, during this show, we're going to talk about patriotism and the difference between patriotism and nationalism. But I have this book. It's called Just Folks, and the poet is Edgar Guest. And this was a book that was given to me by a friend of my grandmother's, Annie McNamara. And this book was printed in 1917. Ooh. But it has a poem in here. It's called A Patriotic Creed. To serve my country day by day, at any humble post I may, to honor and respect her flag, to live the traits of which I brag, to be American indeed, as well as in my printed creed, to stand for truth and honest toil, to till my little patch of soil, and keep in mind the debt I owe to them who died that I might know my country prosperous and free, and pass this heritage to me. I always must in trouble's hour be guided by the men in power, for God and country I must live, my best for God and country give. No act of mine that men may scan must shame the name America. I do my best and play my part, American in mind and heart, to serve the flag and bravely stand, to guard the glory of my land, to be American indeed. God grant me strength to keep this creed. It's a very humble.
Direct, very humble, very direct.
Yeah.
It's not flamboyant like the one, like when you see Donald Trump surrounded, forgive me for using his name, but surrounded by 20 flags and
Right. To live humbly, but remember those that sacrificed their lives so we might have the freedom we have. So why don't we watch it? We have a video, and it was done by, no, I can't think of the name. I have it written down somewhere. But anyway, it's patriotism versus nationalism. What's the difference between patriotism and nationalism? And let's take a look at it and see.
Hey, it's Dan Zimmerman. Welcome to Illustrate to Educate. Don't forget to subscribe for weekly, objective videos on topics that matter. Have you ever wondered, what is the difference between patriotism and nationalism? In this video, we will look at the essential differences between these two. Let's take a brief look at the history of the two words and where they originated. Patriotism is the older of the two words, with written evidence dating back to around 1653. The word patriot itself could even be traced back further to the Greek word patrios, meaning of one's father. There isn't much evidence of nationalism occurring until just before the 19th century, almost 150 years after patriotism. And in its early use, and for a number of decades, nationalism appears to have been largely interchangeable with patriotism. However, in the 19th century and up until today, nationalism has changed meaning, while the meaning of patriotism has remained largely unchanged. Now, let's look at how they're defined. Patriotism is the feeling of love for one's country, along with the feeling of unity with those who share those feelings. It has also been defined as devoted love, support, and defense of one's country. Nationalism, on the other hand, is defined as loyalty and devotion to a nation. But the definition of nationalism also includes exalting one's nation above all others and placing primary emphasis on promotion of its culture and interests as opposed to those of other nations. Others have defined it as the policy or doctrine of asserting the interests of one's own nation viewed as separate from the interests of other nations or the common interests of all nations. Now that we've defined them, how do we compare them with each other? The difference between the two words is largely debated, and even today there's not an official consensus among scholars and social scientists. Some attribute that the feelings of patriotism are based on the positive values the country embraces, like freedom, justice, equality, bravery, value, and devotion. With patriotism, one believes that both the system of government and the people of their country are inherently good and work together for a better quality of life. In contrast, feelings of nationalism are based on a belief that one's country is superior to all others. It can often carry the connotation of distrust or disapproval of other countries, leading to the assumption that other countries are rivals. Nationalism tends to find itself modified by movements of political interest. One outlook by Sidney J. Harris says, "The difference between patriotism and nationalism is the patriot is proud of his country for what it does, and the nationalist is proud of his country no matter what it does." So how do we use patriotism and nationalism today? When using these words, it's important to keep context and connotation in mind. Patriotism generally has a positive connotation. It's used for various positive sentiments, attitudes, and actions involving loving one's country and serving the greater good of all its people. Where nationalism generally has a negative connotation, it's used for political ideologies and movements that have a more extreme and exclusionary love of one's country, at the expense of foreigners, immigrants, and even people in a country who aren't believed to belong in some way, often on racial and religious grounds. Right now, you might be thinking, nationalism just sounds like it's always bad. So is that true? Is nationalism always bad? According to some people, not always. Nationalism has its uses as a very strong motivator for uniting people together in the struggle against injustice. It has driven independence movements, like the Zionist movement that created modern Israel. Some political analysts feel that the peace in the Middle East can only be achieved through a strong national identity of the countries involved, as opposed to the current tribal and religious identities that divide them. Embracing national identities over religion may make it easier to negotiate through national, amenable laws rather than ambiguous religious laws.
That was pretty informative.
That was very good. And yeah, I never thought of the flip side of nationalism because we've grown up in the area where nationalism is always browbeating and divisive as opposed to a uniting force. I never thought of it. I do know it unites because you give one common cause. The problem is the exclusion of it,
Yes.
the exclusion tendency within it, whereas patriotism allows for differences and supporting of each other just because
It's not an us or
that's their
them.
dad.
It's not an us
It's
or
a them
them.
philosophy.
It's not a ruled or be ruled. Well, we have another video by Robert Reich who talks about the difference between nationalism and patriotism, and it's more in a more pointed political aspect, as Robert Reich usually does. So let's watch what Robert Reich has to say about patriotism.
Donald Trump and his enablers often equate nationalism with patriotism. But this couldn't be further from the truth. Trump's nationalism is rooted in fear of outsiders and the belief that Americans, especially white Americans of European heritage, are inherently superior to others. Patriotism, by contrast, isn't about exclusion. It's about inclusion. It involves taking on a fair share of the burdens of keeping America going. Nationalism blasts immigrants as criminals, demands a border wall even when immigration is down, and scapegoats foreigners for our economic woes while ignoring real investments in the American people. This sort of we're better than anyone else nationalism, tinged with racism, typically emerges when demagogues build their base of power by fueling fears of others outside the nation's borders. Throughout history, demagogues have used anger to target scapegoats, thereby dividing and conquering, and distracting people from the real sources of their frustrations. As George Orwell dryly observed, although endlessly brooding on power, victory, defeat, and revenge, the nationalist is uninterested in what happens in the real world. Patriotism, on the other hand, is rooted in our common ideals. These ideals led Lincoln to proclaim that America might yet be the last best hope for humankind. These same ideals prompted Emma Lazarus, some 2 decades later, to welcome the world's tired, poor, huddled masses yearning to breathe free. Americans are not a race. We're not a creed. We're a conviction that all people are created equal, that people should be judged by the content of their character rather than the color of their skin, and that government should be of the people, by the people, and for the people. If we're losing our national identity, it's not because we're becoming browner or speaking more languages than we once did. It's because we are losing our sense of true patriotism. True patriots don't fuel racist or religious or ethnic divisions. They aren't homophobic, transphobic, or sexist. They don't hate others outside our borders. To the contrary, true patriots confirm the good that we have in common. They seek to strengthen and celebrate the we in We the People.
Understand it's, I like to think I'm in that camp, because like I said, I don't like it when a politician appeals to my emotions, because that's always trying to divide and
Right.
conquer. And I prefer to help others than anything else in the world. So I tend to think of myself in those terms. Not always, because I'm a human being, but
Right.
90%
But
of
we
the
have to
time.
rise above that, and that's what the common good is, and that's why we depend on each other
Correct.
to raise ourselves up, to rather than focusing on
Right.
the I, and we look
Because
at the
people
we.
should, we have to look at the we, because let's think about it. 13 colonies, if they'd each had said, we're going to be independent and try to fight Britain on their own, they would have lost.
Right,
They had to come together and become, and we are not just one people, because
Right.
Native Americans were already here, and we imported a few
Right.
against their will, and then we opened our borders, so to increase the population base. So it can't be about people and their skin. It's got to be about ideals in order for America to survive.
right. So.
Did I confuse you in that
No,
direction?
no. I mean, I really like the fact that, he pointed out the difference between nationalistic tendencies,
Mm-hmm.
And we see that, in political movements that
We
that
do
look
now,
to-
yes.
look to just the personality, the cult of personality, rather than standing up for individual rights and also for rule of law.
Right, and that is
That's
the
the
biggest
difference.
danger right now.
That's the
It's-
difference, in a democracy, you are ruled and you rule and are ruled by the rule of law.
Law.
No one's above the law. No one,
Right, no one,
right. And in nationalism, they tend to bring
Bring
certain
some people up.
above the law
Right.
and point out the others that are below.
right.
Howard Zinn is a World War II veteran. He's a historian. He's passed away a number of years ago, but he very easily could have avoided being in World War II, but he ended up volunteering, and he was a bombardier during World War II, so he knows war up close. And he became a historian. And I'd like to hear his words on patriotism. So why don't we take a listen to what
Mr. Zinn.
Howard Zinn says about patriotism.
The idea of patriotism assumes that the government and the citizens have the same interest. So that if the government tells you something, well, it's in all our interest. There's a common interest. In fact, the language in the culture suggests that, tells you that. You hear politicians say, well, we'll go to war if it's in the national interest, meaning we all have the same interests, Exxon and I, General Motors and I, the president and the kid he sends have the same interests. You know, national security. Oh, security means the same thing to all of us. National defense. There are all these phrases that tie us all up into bundles of common interest when there really is no common interest. When the government has its interest, the corporations have their interest, and the ordinary citizen has interests which become put aside and become swept up in the government's interest. And the citizen begins to believe that, no, there's a common interest we all have. We're all one country. We're all Americans. And patriotism means we must all believe in the same things and do the same things and believe what the government says, because the government has our interest at heart, because the government has the same interests that we do. So it takes some work and takes some thinking and takes some studying of history to disabuse yourself of that and then to look at patriotism as something different, to realize that patriotism is not, in its best meaning, obedience to government. That patriotism in its best meaning means obedience, not obedience really, but support of the community, the people, the citizens, not the government, and support of the principles for which the government is supposed to stand, but which it really violates again and again. You know, basically the principles of the Declaration of Independence and equality, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. And patriotism should mean, in its best sense, support of those principles, which means that when the government acts against those principles, the government is being unpatriotic. And if people begin to understand patriotism in that way, they would not rush to war. As soon as some leader of government got up before a microphone and says, oh, we must go to war to fight for democracy or liberty or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Sounds familiar.
Yeah,
It's the common theme of working for the common good, and to be able to recognize that your government doesn't always have your interest in heart. And that's obvious. I mean, we wouldn't have the income inequality that we had
right.
in this country if government had the will to do something about it.
Right, and if you want to talk about income inequality, I'd refer you to the Berkshire Eagle today. They have a Paul Krugman article that was in the New York Times and talks about super yachts and how Clarence Thomas got to visit the super yacht.
Yachts, yes.
And it wasn't talking much about Clarence Thomas, but he thought about the existence of super yachts. Why are there people that have to have super yachts? And he said it goes back to prior to World War II, there were a lot of super yachts. But after World War II, when the tax system was set up to make America a middle-class country again, all of a sudden they didn't have the money. The super rich couldn't afford the super yachts. They could afford a yacht, but not a super yacht.
Yeah, I get it, yeah.
And he says, why do we have those? And like we have super rich people buying their own spaceships and things like that.
Going to the moon,
right.
yes.
Is that patriotic, you know? No. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. And people got to realize when Biden often uses that America can do anything if we pull together and we work for the common good. He tries to reignite that feeling of patriotism and the commitment and the trust to work together.
Right.
And to share everything.
Right. Stop banning books. Let's not fear books. Let's fear bullets more than we fear books. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And let's, and let's not be afraid of your neighbor just because they're different.
And let's not overemphasize the Second Amendment over the First Amendment.
True. Freedom of speech should come before freedom of guns.
Yeah.
And
a
people's
well-regulated-
lives should come before guns.
Right. So I want to make sure that we get this in. We have, I was thinking this morning, I had a lot of people that I wanted to put in and talk of patriotism, but we had to cull some out. I didn't send them, but I thought of Langston Hughes, who is
yes.
a poet, and he was part of the Harlem Renaissance. And he has a poem about America. And so I'd like to show that poem as read by, I think it's Denzel Scott, I'm not sure, but let's show that video. I'm sorry that I don't have all that in front of me, but.
Let America be America again, by Langston Hughes. Let America be America again. Let it be the dream it used to be. Let it be the pioneer on the plain, seeking a home where he himself is free. America was never America to me. Let America be the dream the dreamers dreamed. Let it be that great, strong land of love where never kings connive nor tyrants scheme, that any man be crushed by one above. It was never America to me. Oh, let my land be a land where liberty is crowned with no false patriotic wreath, but opportunity is real and life is free, equality in the air we breathe. There's never been equality for me, nor freedom in this homeland of the free. Say, who are you that mumbles in the dark? And who are you that draws your veil across the stars? I am the poor, white, fooled and pushed apart. I am the Negro bearing slavery scars. I am the red man driven from the land. I am the immigrant clutching the hope I seek and finding only the same old stupid plan of dog eat dog, of mighty crush the weak. I am the young man full of strength and hope, tangled in that ancient endless chain of profit, power, gain, of grab the land, of grab the gold, of grab the ways of satisfying need, of work the men, of take the pay, of owning everything for one's own greed. I am the farmer, bondsman to the soil. I am the worker, sold to the machine. I am the Negro, servant to you all. I am the people, humble, hungry, mean, hungry yet today, despite the dream, beaten yet today. Oh, pioneers, I am the man who never got ahead. I am the poorest worker bartered through the years yet. I am the one who dreamt our basic dream in the old world while still a serf of kings, who dreamt a dream so strong, so brave, so true, that even yet its mighty daring sings in every brick and stone, in every furrow turned that's made America the land it has become. Oh, I am the man who sailed those early seas in search of what I meant to be my home. For I am the one who left dark Ireland's shore and Poland's plain and England's grassy lay, and torn from black Africa's strand to build a homeland of the free. The free? Who said the free? Not me. Surely not me. The millions on relief today, the millions shot down when we strike, the millions who have nothing for our pay, for all the dreams we've dreamed and all the songs we've sung and all the hopes we've held and all the flags we've hung, the millions who have nothing for our pay except the dream that's almost dead today. Oh, let America be America again, the land that never has yet been and yet must be the land where every man is free, the land that's mine, the poor man's, Indians, Negroes, me, who made America, whose sweat and blood, whose faith and pain, whose hand at the foundry, whose plow in the rain must bring back our mighty dream again. Sure, call me any ugly name you choose. The steel of freedom does not stain. From those who live like leeches on people's lives, we must take back our land again. America, oh yes, I say it plain. America was never America to me. And yet I swear this oath, America will be. Out of the rake and ruin of our gangster death, the rape and rot of graft, of stealth and lies, we, the people, must redeem the land, the mines, the plants, the rivers, the mountains, and the endless plain. All the stretch of these great green states, and make America again.
Wow. That was Denzel Smith
Okay.
reading Langston Hughes' Let America Be
Be
America
America.
Again. And it's an amazing poem. I really, it's very moving.
Oh,
And,
yeah, and it covers the warts as well as the good part, the hope.
It's the dream.
It's the dream,
It's
which
the-
we all
right.
want. Yeah.
Right, and like on our last show, we talked about the two Justins that were expelled. Justin, I think it was
Jones.
Justin Jones and Justin Pearson.
Yes.
Were both expelled from the Tennessee State House as representatives. But as of today, they're both
Both back.
reinstated.
They're
But, yeah,
temporarily
But they gave a
reinstated.
speech. No, they're permanently. Well, there's going to be an
There's
election.
a special election. I'm
Special
sure
election,
they're going to
but-
win it
But in
again.
their speech, their rousing speeches, they talked about, you can't expel youth, you can't expel hope.
Nope.
We're coming back stronger than they were before.
Sure.
And they're organizing and going to move forward. Just like when Langston Hughes said, "Let America be America."
It's the
They're
same
going to
thing.
lead. They're going to lead people to try to regain that patriotic dream.
Yeah. Yes, that's what they've committed to. They're going to walk in the steps of Martin Luther King and try to reignite the movement. And Martin Luther King movement was all-inclusive. It wasn't just...
It wasn't get rid of poverty. It was just the
basically
war
what
on
he
poverty,
wanted.
Yeah.
And everybody, everybody's in poverty, whether they realize it or not.
Right.
Really, the 0.01% might not be in poverty.
It's
but the
that
rest
old
of us-
saying, we may have come on different boats, but we may have come over on different ships, but we're all in the same boat now.
Now. Yes, we are.
And as Martin Luther King called to those that were rich, that all they had to do is not become rich as fast, not get richer as fast as they want to be. If they slowed down getting rich, but continued to get rich and shared some of that extra
Sure.
in taxes to help bring the people out of poverty. And I think that's true patriotism.
Yes.
When everyone in the nation, when a land that is the richest nation in the world, that we don't have children that are hungry, and we don't have people that are in poverty. If we can
Good.
raise people out of poverty, I think that would be the most patriotic act that we could do.
Yeah, it certainly would be, and it would stabilize everything,
Yeah.
because it's greed that keeps us apart, ultimately.
Right. So we just ask for power to the people, just as those two Justins in Tennessee
want.
were saying power to the people.
And we'll see you next week.
There's power in the factory, power in the land, power in the hand of the worker. But it all amounts to nothing if together we don't stand. There is power in our union. Now the lessons of the past were all learned with workers' blood. The strikes of the bosses we must pay for. From the cities and the farmlands to trenches full of